Hello and welcome to another glorious read. I am your host, Aston Sage. Let's get into it. First off, happy Saturday. I hope everybody had a great Valentine's Day last week. I know I did a little podcast back then, but we're going forward. Like I said, happy Saturday. I hope everybody's enjoying their day. I hope it's warm or comfortable or you're cozy or just, chilling for the day because we all need days like that. But let's get into it. So last week I covered two books of the series, The Dragon Lords, by Amy Pennza. I hope I pronounced that right. I do apologize if I didn't. The last time we talked about Kiss of Smoke and the Darkfire Kiss, and we are on to book number 3, The Kiss of the Dragon King. So in the previous books, you always hear about the crazy Dragon King, how the king has lost his mind, he's fallen into madness, he's um, consumed by the flames, as they put it. So in this book is basically about his love and everything else, but mostly the story falls around his other mate, who's a witch half breed named Niall. Niall is a witch halfling, like I said. He's also the king's consort. He is basically running the dragon kingdom, while Cormac, the king, or Cormac, depends how you want to pronounce it, is falling into the madness. Niall has to do so much stuff just to make sure that the king is somewhat sane. Um, he has to work with his grandfather, who is a full blown witch, who's stealing all the elements and blah blah blah. Um, and his grandfather makes him do all this stuff. He wants an heir, so he's basically using Niall as the best way I could put it in the mildest terms as a surrogate or a stud. So he's trying to collect semen and stuff from Niall to make a um, new heir. So basically, he doesn't have to look at Niall because he's part dragon. Um, in return, Niall has to um, give his grandfather the stuff to get a serum, basically to put Cormac in a calm state. It's basically poisoned for some. It's a sedative for dragons. Um, and his grandfather comes to him and says, "One more night with a woman. The house is fully enchanted. Blah blah blah. So I get an heir." And he's like, "In return, I will give you the recipe for this, so you don't have to deal with me anymore." Well, it's very tempting, but of course, Niall's like, absolutely not. So Niall returns to the king. He basically gives him the poison after the king woke up a little bit, come back to his hearing, saying how he misses him. And Niall's like, yeah, I miss you too. Um, During all this, he also has to go visit the demon plane. Well, on the demon plane, there's a woman named Isolde. We have also had a different character in a different book called Isolde. Um, she thinks she's a demon. She is deformed, as she puts it. She doesn't have horns like demons do. Her father keeps her locked in a tower and like all that stuff. And her father's a doctor. Um, and her father has to go visit the Demon King, basically. And during this, she's like, I'm gonna escape. I want to live life a little bit on the edge. She goes to the demon's court. What happened to be there is also Niall. Well, Niall gets whiff of her, and he smells a different type of scent, and he's like, "What is that?" And he pinpoints it because he remembers it's a female dragon. Female dragons aren't supposed to exist, obviously, in these books because there's a curse that's taken them out, a plague of some sorts. Um, but he finds her and he chases her down. Basically, she runs off on a fire steed. I guess that's like a demon horse in their world. Um, and he grabs one and he's chasing after her. And he, of course, shifts into a dragon and scares the heck out of her in her tower. And she's threatening him with a slipper. What all I can think is like the Disney movie Rapunzel, where she's got the frying pan and she's like, I will smack you. Um, She's unsure how he is, but she feels a connection, as most mates do. And he's like, you're a female dragon. He basically kidnaps her from the tower while the demons are chasing him down. and takes him back to the castle. Um, she thinks he's a demon, but at the same time, he knows that's not the truth. So the whole thing is he's realizing that there's more to this story. So he asks her what her name is, how are you, basically a living being. She goes, "Oh, my father raised me. I was in the tower, and I'm a deformed demon." And he tells her basically she's beautiful. Shows her in the mirror. He goes, "You're not supposed to have horns. You're a dragon. You're supposed to, be different things." And she's like, her world's turned upside down. She grew up in the demon plane. Everything's been kind of like medieval there, so a lot of things don't make sense to her. And she's like, "Oh, okay." And she's slowly like realizing maybe her life was a lie. Why Niall, on the other hand, is going, "I am gonna slay every demon." He's like, "How dare they keep a female dragon from us, especially the king's mate, my mate?" That whole like fiasco. He realizes that she looks very familiar, and it's the eyes and the hair, and he goes, "Oh no." He realizes that he knows her twin brother. Her twin brother is Bram from the other book, who basically was told, as all the other dragons were told, that his twin sister died at birth. Not the truth. Her father that raised her, the demon one, is actually the physician that delivered them. So now they know the truth that she was actually kidnapped as a baby and raised. She thinks she's 18, and he's like, "Yeah, that's not the case. You're way older than that." Um, and there was a reason why the demons did it. I will tell you later. During this, Niall and her get very close. They do have a little bit of a spicy moment. But during this spicy moment, lo and behold, somebody wakes up, aka the king. He's in a fiery rage. He basically hurts Niall, doesn't realize it. He kidnaps Isolde, brings her back down to his cave. He wants his way with her, but slowly but surely she smokes out what's basically the dragon's form of before they shift. And she doesn't realize she's able to do that. And it confuses him. And then he realizes slowly but surely he comes back. He's starting to like become more coherent and stuff, and finds out like she's a mate and he doesn't want to hurt her, but he doesn't want to return to the flames, basically his madness. And she slowly helps bring him out. And then he's like, "Well, where's Niall?" And she goes, "You don't remember hurting him? Like, you broke his spine." And he's like, "I hurt my lover?" Like, he's very heartbroken about it. And then basically the demons come knocking. Niall shows up and says, "We gotta go. It's not safe here." Isolde is like, "Oh no, like, why are they here? They don't even know where I am. Why are they coming after me?" And of course, Cormac goes back into his madness a little bit. He's like, "Nobody's gonna take her from me." It's up to Niall to basically make him sedate again and bring them to safety. Niall is also a water witchling, so he can travel through water, and that's what he does. He constantly uses it as a form of traveling to go from one place to the next. Um, During this, he comes up with a bold plan. He grabs both of them. He poisons McCormick to put him to sleep while he kisses him, kind of thing, kind of like a transfer. And then they end up in Manhattan underneath basically Niall's grandfather's terrain or his territory. He doesn't find that very comforting, but it is what it is. During this part, of course, Isolde has a lot more questions. She's like, "What's going on? Why is this happening? You promised to tell me everything." And Niall is just like in like so much self-denial. He's like, "You don't understand what I've been through." He's just like, "Nobody's gonna really love me when they find out. I'm gonna lose both of them." And this book is very like very self-hate on Niall's part, but it takes both of his mates to be like, "You did things for the right reasons and you didn't break any vows." Even though Niall's like, "You don't understand, I slept with women, I didn't stay faithful to our vows, blah blah blah." And even more, Cormac's like, "Dude, you're alright." During this, after he finally gets Isolde to the bed, he goes back to his room and he starts having nightmares. And then he realizes that McCormick's above him. And he goes, "You broke your promise to me to never use witchcraft." And he's like, "Oh shit." They do have a lot of intimacy moments. And then in the morning, McCormick's up. with coffee. As Ollie wakes up, she's like, are you sane? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. But it's kind of funny also in this book because McCormick fell into madness like centuries and centuries. He's been mad. He doesn't know even what year it is. He doesn't understand the new confound contraptions. And of course, she grew up in like medieval like era. And they're both trying to figure out all the new contraptions, something like coffee pots, and McCormick keeps referring to everything as witchcraft, witchcraft. And like it takes Niall to be like, no, it's science, this, it's electronic. You know what? I'm not gonna explain to you. It's very funny how this works. Regardless, of course, I saw he's like, oh, you never sleep in. And it's like the whole idea that she can feel the moon pull like her brother because she's a half werewolf, half dragon. Um, and of course, Niall wakes up and he's like, "Oh crap, stuff's going on." Um, so he ends up running downstairs, and of course, everybody's fine. They're watching TV, and like the was like, "I found your magic box." And he's like, "It's not a magic box." He goes, "This game." They're like watching her like a soccer match, and he's like, I don't understand this sport. He's like, well, it's being played somewhere else and they're broadcasting. He's like, you know what? It's just too much to explain to you right now. And then he's talking about how he needs to buy her clothes and how things are just going out of spiral. It basically takes both of them to realize that they need to work on their relationship, rebuilding again a little bit. At least that's what I gained from the books. It's very nice, though. I like how this one was written because I will admit, Niall was basically the foremost character. He obviously had his struggles. Cormac realizes that he has to make up for what he has done falling into the madness. He does feel bad that obviously Niall had to take over his spot. Of course, now they found their female mate. They decided that they obviously want to go through it. And of course, Niall, this whole time while McCormick was recovering himself, kept telling us all he will not claim her without McCormick because obviously the king has to be present. They're all mates, even though she was frustrated, like, touch me, let me touch you, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, we need Cormac here. Um, so she understands. And the more that they're getting used to this new century, Cormac's like, did I ever say how much I love this century? Like, he's such a teenager kind of thing where he's like, he's a king, but at the same time, he's very young. Like everything's new to him, so he gets excited. She starts by, or they buy her a bunch of new clothes, and she starts trying it on, and like they're dying because they think she's so gorgeous in all these clothes. And Cormac just looks back at Niall. He's like, "Did I ever say I mentioned that I love this century?" And he's like, "Yes, multiple times, but she's doing this on purpose." She does come out in like this nice, really lingerie, and she's like, I want to mate with all of you and all this stuff. I want us to do what we have to do, but I want to watch you two first. And they're like, huh? Okay. And then she's like, I've watched so much, adult films on your phone, Niall. And he's like, you've done what? And then Cormac's like, what's that? Like, they had to explain it to him at the same time. Um, During this session of them being spicy together, she faints and she's bleeding and stuff. And of course, um, they bring in the old characters from the previous books. So you have Alec, Lachlan, um, their pregnant mate, Chloe. You have Bram and Fergus, and of course Hilya. And they come in and they find out that she's Isolde is sick and that she's got the same disease as all the other female dragons had. So as they're there, that she meets her mate or her brother. Correction, they meet her twin brother, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we can sing." And then Hilya is kind of confused because she goes, "She smells like she has too much blood." Of course, her being a vampire, she can smell these things. She's like, her blood almost smells like it's too sweet, like it's so much of it that her body can't restrain it. And they're like, well, that doesn't make sense. And of course, Niall's like, well, it does now in today's world. There's diseases that humans found that we can look up now. So he takes out his phone, and of course, Cormac makes a joke. He's like, keeping fairies in your pocket again. He's like, it's science. It's science, Cormac. It's science. it's a new world. And he's frustrated because, again, Niall grew up in this whole, like, different centuries while Cormac stayed in the past. Um, so they find out that she has a different blood disease and that there's not really any curable other than to be drained. Well, during this whole thing, they asked also Alex, who is part Fae, to help her with her memories and her nightmares because Isolde has nightmares and she can't figure out why. So her nightmares are her blood being drained and being taken by these monsters. After Alec helps her through this, she finds out that the monsters are actually the demons that kept her. Like, it was the king and her father, and every night they would drain her blood and drink it, explaining why they lived for so long, because demons are kind of like mortals, they don't live as long. And so they kept drinking her blood and killing her every night. And basically that puts obviously the king into a rage, Niall into a rage, everybody into a rage because they're finding out that they're killing her every night. Of course, Niall's grandfather pops up, ruins everything. Basically, oh yeah, she's sick, she's dying, blah blah blah, and you guys are gonna go with her. But he also tells McCormac and Isolde that Niall has not been faithful. He's been doing all this stuff and how he enjoys sleeping with other whores and stuff like that, and how he's been poisoning the king for centuries and just ruins everything. Of course, Niall breaks down. Cormac has to like rein him in and be like, it's okay, everything is forgiven. Yeah, it does not go well on Niall's part. He's pretty sure that the king's not gonna love him anymore. His needed mate. And of course, Cormac's like, it's okay. You didn't break any vows. You were forced. It's rape. It's rape regardless. And of course, Niall cries, and all three of them hold each other. It's very reassuring to see the dynamics that's like, it doesn't matter. They love very deeply, and it's nice. During this, they're also setting up for battle. So they're gonna go fight the demons and basically kill the doctor who stole Isolde. They're gonna go kill the king, and as they're going, there's also Chloe who's pregnant, and she's pretty sure that the baby is just eating this power. Like, the her mates don't understand that this baby is like absorbing power like her. I think it's called the Domrum. So she basically absorbs power from everybody else when she touches. Um, so as they go to the demon kingdom, sorry to get a little bit off track here. Obviously, the king jumps up and they see her or Isolde, and they're like, oh, she's returned. But then they're like, see all the other dragons. They're like, you can't kill me. I'm the king. Blah blah blah. The rules. Of course, Cormac's there, and he goes, I created the rules, kind of thing, and obviously kills the demon king. Of course, the physician says how much he actually loved Ursula, raised her as a daughter, and how he was actually saving her life because of the disease and stuff like that. And then basically it comes into him accusing Niall's grandfather of being the one to create this disease. He's like, that's impossible. And then he goes, no, that means he has like the blood element and this and that. And he goes, it's true. So they basically, no, that's not right. And then all of a sudden they realize that they walked into an ambush with all the witches after these two demons are dead. Of course, the grandfather's there rightfully, and he's like, I hated you guys so much. I created a disease for you guys to have. And then your freaking kind started taking our own women, and he went off the deep end. So there was a lot of fighting going on. Obviously, Niall came head to head with his grandfather, and it was just a lot of pain and stuff because his grandfather was able to control the blood, and he was basically trying to kill Niall from inside. And then he grabs Isolde. He's got to kill Isolde by tricking her out. But then all of a sudden, Hilliard shows up behind him with Chloe, and he doesn't understand, and Chloe grabs him, and of course, her being what she is, she's sucking up the energy, and he doesn't understand why he can't shake her or anything else. And of course, the baby in her womb is eating all the power, and somehow she's able to take all of his elements he stole from previous witches to use against him. So it's a really good storyline where it was basically the battle of the battles. Um, Obviously, the three main characters make together. They're happy. Niall has learned to forgive himself. Cormac has realized that he doesn't realize why he ever chose the flames over being in reality. He's obviously conquered his madness. And of course, Isolde, she's growing. She now knows her power. She does shift in the book. Gets cursed by her two mates for flying over Manhattan. um, but it's a really nice book. It's definitely a nice love triangle, I will admit. Um, and of course, the new book or the next book rolls over into a new book. Uh, I'm excited to know how that one goes. It does start. I read like the first couple pages or chapters, correction. It does start with Cormac, Niall, and Isolde ruling the Dragon Kingdom in their castle. And a witch from the Blackwood family comes and asks for safe passage. And of course, Niall's like against all witches, even though he is part witch. Um, so it's very funny. And of course, this woman, Georgie, is like, I just need to go, catch the North Wind. During this whole session, she finds her mate, well, one of that said mates. So this book plays off a little different to start. Instead of it's being the two males already mated, it's actually the male and female main character starting to be the mates. So it's very interesting how this one starts. But that's for next week's review. I think I'm going to end up finishing this whole series before starting a new one. I do love this series. I'm not usually into the whole love triangle things, but these ones are well written. Like, it's not like a lot of jealousy and this one's mine, this one's mine. You know, it's not a love hate whole love triangle. It's basically every lover is treated the same. So the dragons being polygamous, they love deeply, and that's the only way you could really kill them is if one dies, then the three follow because they just love each other so deeply. Amy Pennza did a really good job on this series. I will say probably my favorite in this book is Niall because of the hard self struggles he deals with and how he tries to stay loyal and that he loves deeply and cares about everybody around him. Spice level is definitely a solid 4.7. There is a lot of spice. It is well descriptive. It does make me mildly blush, but it's not enough for me to shut the book down and go, oh dear, I can't. I don't know if I can get through this. Definitely the full book, I give it a 5. This one is definitely a lot different than the previous two. But I do like how it went. And I do like how I guess the author does do different female breeds. I do hope that the last one, not the one I'm reading now, but the last one involves maybe a werewolf because that'd be cool. I do like my wolf shifters. I do like my other shifters. But this is a really good series. I definitely recommend picking it up. Again, if you like the love triangle kind of deal, if you're not worried about the male, female character, or however you want to read it, there are some one-on-one actions just between two characters at a time. But if you can look past that, if you're not comfortable with that, I understand. But if you look past it, the story itself is actually pretty beautiful, especially where in this book there's a female dragon, and female dragons haven't ruled the skies in centuries. And of course, Cormac, when he sees Isolde fly for the first time, he's basically crying. He's like, as the king, he goes, I never thought I'd see ever a female dragon in the sky again. Of course, in this book, they do end the curse too. So they're hoping now in future generation, more female dragons will be born. And even though their blood is diluted with other first race creatures. But that is all for today, guys. I'm sorry if I talk too fast. This book was just really exciting for me. It's hard to keep track and it's hard to keep a solid pace. But thank you for listening in. I hope you have a wonderful day. And I do hope that you go on a nice adventure, maybe a little trip, maybe a walk, coffee shop, bakery. Go buy that one thing you've been putting off on your item list, whether it be like, a new stone or a new like cookie, that new dress, or that book on the shelf that you've been eyeing every time you go to the bookstore, because we all do that. We all look at it and go, no, no, I'm not ready for it yet. Go buy it. You know you deserve it. Thank you, everybody, for listening in, and I will catch you next time. Thank you, and bye bye.